So lead generation doesn't have to feel weird because if you're someone that, perhaps whenever it comes to lead generation, you just don't really want to do it, it feels a bit salesy, it's just not very uncomfortable, then this video is for you. And what I'm going to be sharing in this video is the approach that you and I can both take, which takes maybe 30, 45 minutes every single day, but is going to allow you to sell to your warmer audience, but in a very authentic way, in a way that just feels right, and it's probably the most consistent way you can generate leads anyway. So let's just understand this. The reason why people worry about lead generation is probably because you had the people that have spammed you, like, perhaps in your emails or, spam outreached, and you don't want to, fit into someone like that. Right. And the reason why it probably feels weird is, maybe just simply because you don't want to fit into that category means that although it's important to, focus on your lead generation more so, you don't want to fit into that category of people and you just don't really know how to do it. And that's totally understandable. So here's exactly what you need to know. So the first thing that I like to focus on, right, if I'm looking to get more consistent leads, is outreach, right? Because this is effectively the one thing that I will have some level of control over. Now, why not content, right? Why is content not the main thing? And obviously, this is content technically. Why is this not the main thing? Well, the problem with content is that you have effectively no control over it, right? You have no control, like other than, what's in the sort of content, you have no control in terms of who it's being seen to and how many of those individuals it's being shown to, right? Because the algorithm's controlling that. And I find that a lot of coaches or just other sort of founders and such will, post content or post it consistently and the content's good, but that's it, right? And they just basically sit back and they just wait for something to come their way. And this is effectively just relying on luck, and I'm just relying on the right person to see it and to be in the right situation for them to reach out. So this is why I like to do outreach because this is more predictable. However, we're not going to be doing the more, say, cold and salesy outreach. What we're going to be focusing on is warm outreach, right? Dealing with those more sort of like warmer, more familiar leads, right? People that have perhaps seen us recently, they've seen a bit about us, maybe they've seen our content. So they're going to be more likely to respond to the message, they're going to be more likely to take you a bit more seriously and such. So this process can be split into a few steps. So let's just go through this. The first step is being able to find these individuals. Now, when it comes to finding like your sort of ideal client, this is going to depend in terms of which platform you're using. But if we're talking about LinkedIn here, this primarily is going to be through LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? Because LinkedIn Sales Navigator allows you to create a very specific list of your ideal clients. And with this, when I've created a very specific list, I'll be able to send connection requests from that list to actually start getting in front of those ideal clients. Now, what could I filter for? The things I might look to filter for will be things such as their role. So for me, it might be something like looking for coach or perhaps even founder. Oh, terrible spelling. So role could be one of them. One could be actually say like experience in terms of like in the role. So, if I'm, like ideally I want to deal with someone who's perhaps not at the very beginning of their business, right? But perhaps has maybe a more established business. And maybe I'm looking for anything that's 2+ years, right? And I might even look for if they posted recently on LinkedIn as well, because that also means that perhaps they're going to be more likely to respond because they're going to be more likely to be active on LinkedIn, right? But those are just a few of the sort of settings you can play around with, but they generally tend to be the more important ones. So once we create a very specific list of our ideal client, then we want to actually, use that list. So what I tend to do is I then tend to send about 20 connection requests every single day. Now this probably takes 5 minutes a day, right? But what it means is a few things, right? Some people will accept the connection request and they will be people that accepted it simply for the sake of doing it, right? That's one type of person. The other type of person is someone that has accepted it simply because perhaps they've seen a bit more about what you do and they're perhaps a bit interested. But what we know for certain is that when we send these connection requests, we are getting in front of effectively 20 potential ideal clients, right? Every single day, you have that certainty that you are getting in front of that many people, right? You have control over that as opposed to, say, content and such. Then it's simply a matter of what we do with this. So once we've gone and we've sent the connection request, then we want to then take the warm and familiar leads and we want to start sending them a message. This is going to be sort of stage two to this. So we're going to take, say, people that are new connections, right? So obviously from the connection, but you also want to look at perhaps people that are maybe profile viewers, and then you might even want to look at people that have perhaps engaged with your content, right? Because these are all warmer leads that I would sort of clarify that are sort of more familiar with you. Then from there, we want to send them a message, right? So we want to send all these people a message, and this is really going to focus on doing two things. The first thing is that we're going to focus on personalizing the message, right? And the reason why we do that is because we want the individual to feel like we've actually taken the time to look at what they're doing and just basically show them that we care about them to some degree, right? And ideally, this personalization wants to be a compliment on something that they would care about, right? So, for example, I might look perhaps at their more recent content, and I might just find something that I can make a comment on. So the message might start off as hey name, liked your post on whatever it was, and then give a little bit of personalization. We're not looking for paragraphs or anything, but just keep it to the point, but at least show that you've taken that time, right? Because that'll also make them more likely to respond as well. The second thing we want to do is that once we personalized it, right, before we actually send this message, we then want to ask a qualifying question. Now, why a qualifying question? Well, the thing is that a lot of the time people might say, "Oh, yeah, you should build some rapport, right? You should build some rapport, build a bit of a relationship before you get into that." And although that's definitely a way you can go, the thing is that if you message someone, or let's say I message you, for example, you have a pretty good idea exactly why I'm messaging you, right? Because at the end of the day, probably I want something from you, right? Whether that is, to actually ask you a question to then see if I want to book you in and so on and so forth, right? But you sort of know that from the get go. So why waste time? Like why waste time when actually what you can do is just basically ask a qualifying question to be pretty direct as well and upfront, right? So you're not trying to create any sort of fake relationship. So, what would this look like? So, for me, this might be obviously I personalize the message, but then afterwards, I then might ask the question of how the LinkedIn lead generation is coming along and if it's doing well, right? Because when I phrase it like that, I'm making it very clear, like why I'm doing it, but I'm also making sure that actually I'm not wasting my time and I'm getting exactly to the point and seeing why they accepted, right? Now, when I send this message, I'm going to get three possible outcomes. The first one is that they're going to ghost me. And this is very natural in any form of outreach. There is never a time where you won't get ghosted. So, what I can do here is all I can do really is just then follow up. Now, if these are warmer leads, I'm usually going to look to follow up a few times. I'll usually aim to send the same similar follow ups and experiment with them. But you want to make sure these follow ups aren't too big, but you do want to bump this up because sometimes people are just genuinely busy, right? Like I've followed up people, two, three, four, like 4 or 5 times, and then they've got back to me and they've actually given me a pretty good response, right? So sometimes people are just busy and you just need to accept that following up is just a part of the process. The other side to this is that people will actually say, no. They'll say no in the sense of no, like I don't have that problem, I'm all good. And that's obviously great because you've got a response, right? That's better than just being ghosted. So from here, you can either leave it at that and just cross them off the list, or if you want to like almost push a bit further, just to check that they're not just saying no for the sake of brushing you off, you can try and clarify it a bit. So for example, for me, I might ask if they're booking, I don't know, 5+ sales calls a week or something, or I might ask them if perhaps their lead generation, if it's majority referrals or if they've got some outreach or something going on, right? Just to see if they do actually have the problem. Now, I could say that, and they could say, no, actually, it's literally all good. And if they do, I'm like, cool, that's fine. I'll leave it at that. But you might also get the actual position where someone does say, well, actually, you know, it's not as good as it's not as good as what it sounds, or like, yes, I actually, it's not very good. Cool. right? So that's obviously your other option. And then your other option here is the more ideal, where someone actually said yes, right? Yes, my LinkedIn lead generation isn't as good as I want it to be, and so on and so forth, or whatever it is for your niche. Now, obviously, the goal of that was just to identify if they have a problem that we can solve or not, right? We're not trying to pitch, we're not trying to promote our recent event, masterclass, or offer. We're just trying to see if they have a problem that we can solve or not. And if they do and they open up about it, whether it be a little bit or a lot, then we want to propose a sales call. Simple as that, right? We're not trying to do anything more, because if someone is in a position where they are open enough to opening up about a problem that they have, chances are they're also probably going to be open enough to hopping on a call with you to see if you could help them solve that problem, quite simply. So all we want to then do is literally propose a call. And what you want to be very, very careful of is this. Make sure this call is to see if or how you can help them, because I made the mistake of just booking people in on a call and making the call almost proposed as something that was too broad, to the point where people didn't even really know they were hopping on a sales call and they thought they were just getting free information. So make sure this call is very specifically showing, or at least, there to see if or how you could help them. Because what this approach allows you to do, right? Bearing in mind you're probably spending maybe 30 to 45 minutes a day on this, probably around 30 minutes, right? What this approach allows you to do is this. It allows you to find very specific ideal clients, right? Clients that are more budget qualified and fit your ideal client better. You can then get in front of 20 every single day, right? Guaranteed you're getting in front of 20 in some way, shape, or form. Then the people that do actually accept, and the people that sort of like actually do accept that, you're then actually starting the sort of conversation yourself, right? You're not relying on anything else. You're taking action. You're starting the conversation. When you're personalizing and asking a qualifying question, you're doing it, effectively lead generation in a authentic way, but getting very much to the point. And then if people, do actually have a problem that actually you can solve, that's when you're proposing a call specifically to see if they want to actually get like help with that problem or not, or at least if it's a good fit, right? Meaning that it's almost a method that you have a lot of control over, right? You genuinely have a lot of control over this, as opposed to content. Now, I'd still keep doing content, and obviously I do content as well, but just even having this warm outreach approach, where maybe you spend about 30 minutes, say, a day, is going to make all the difference, because it's going to allow you to take the people that have seen your content, right? I know some people that have been following my content for a while that I would have just recently spoken to in the first time, right? It takes the people that are familiar to you, your content, perhaps the results you've gotten, and it allows you to start that conversation, right? And this is what's really, really crucial about it, because you get control over this. So hopefully you found this useful, and I genuinely think that this will be such a good way for you to actually get more control over your lead generation without having to feel sort of weird and salesy about it. Now, if this is something that you think would actually benefit you, but you're not really looking to spend the time and energy on it, then I help coaches basically sign clients through a done for you LinkedIn client acquisition, meaning that you can focus more on closing deals and delivering for clients, as opposed to having to do lead generation. And I'll do that for you. So if that's of interest, then do let me know. But hopefully you found this useful, and I'll chat soon.